This is our adventure. This isn't our goodbye. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun
Hi, my name is Matt Liebsch from Pioneer Midwest, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are one of the largest ski shops in North America, and we have an exclusive collection of race closeouts. So we've got a bunch of Rosinal, and we've got Solomon skis, and we carry Fisher, Machus, and Atomic as well. But since we're big enough, we can usually leverage our buying power with manufacturers, and we can get a bunch of race closeouts. So this spring we will have a bunch of options, and you'll be able to check those out on our website at pioneermidwest.com to check our selection. Hello, this is Matt Liebsch from Pioneer Midwest, and welcome to our shop. I wanted to let everyone know that by shopping with us and supporting us, it supports the organizations that we all love. So we're sponsors of the Berkey, City Lakes Loped Foundation, and the Boss Loped, along with high school skiing in Minnesota and other states as well. So we thank you for your support, and we look forward to continuing supporting the Nordic ski community around the country.
Hi everyone, it is Sophie Caldwell checking in from a beautiful sunny Davos, Switzerland, and very snowy. I just wanted to wish you good luck in the Berkey today. I can't wait to be home some winter doing the Berkey myself. It's something I've always dreamed of. I know it's a little different this year, but I'm sure it will still be special, and I'm sending you speedy vibes and lots of luck.
Good morning and welcome to the 47th Slumberland American Birkebeiner. As you can see from this picture, it's a snowy day here at the Berkey Trailhead just outside of Cable, Wisconsin. If you were able to join us yesterday, we had some great skate racing. Today, a totally different format on this Birkie Trail. This is going to be a day of classic racing. And if you're a classic skier, you know when this fresh snow is falling and the temperature is hovering just below 0 Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, wax can be a real problem. The other concern, obviously, is if you can see from our picture, the American Birkebeiner was out working all night. Here you see a start list for the elite men, led out by yesterday's winner, Johnny Hagenbrook. In fact, interestingly, in both the men's and women's race, some of our top finishers in the skate race are returning this morning to challenge themselves for a classic race on this difficult American Birkebeiner ski trail. And looking down that list, let me just identify some bib numbers, the people to watch for. First of all, wearing bib number 304 is going to be Johnny Hagenbrook. And Johnny's 19 years old. He skis for Sun Valley Ski Education Foundation out of Sun Valley, Idaho. The second place finisher was Sam Wood yesterday, and Sam's also from Sun Valley, a teammate. He's 24. He's wearing bib 311. And then the third place finisher, Tyler Cornfield, he's 30 years old. He skis for that strong program out of Alaska APU. There, actually, you can see him in the picture, and he's wearing bib 306. Also returning to compete today are Brian Gregg, a perennial podium finisher. Never quite won this race, but Brian's skiing in a Lopic Nordic racing suit, as is his amigo buddy Matt Liebsch. And Liebsch is going to challenge himself in a classic race. Matt's such a strong skate skier. We're going to see how he does in classic technique. As I look down this list, some other people to look for. Ian Torchia, he's had high finishes in skate racing. You know, the interesting thing is, because the majority of prize money was always in the skate race, and the skate and classic were held on the same simultaneous course, or not, I should say, on the same day simultaneously. So a lot of these athletes are familiar with racing this course, or at least most of the course, in the skate technique, but not racing in classic. Plus, it's going to be interesting because in terms of rest recovery, it's a whole different format. These guys who were out pushing themselves yesterday, now they return, and not the easiest day for classic skiing. The course is quite different, too. Instead of skiing to the main street of Hayward because of the COVID-19 pandemic, these athletes are going to go from the start to Double O, a distance of approximately 20 kilometers on the skate race, and then they're going to make a U-turn and return north on the classic trail, a little further distance, about 23 kilometers, 24 kilometers on the classic trail, and finish at a new finish stadium just to the right of your picture as you look at the Birkie start area. This start area was created by the foundation several years ago when they bought 30 acres from the then existing Telmark owner. And exciting is the announcement within the last 2 weeks. They have now purchased, and by they I mean the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, has purchased 725 acres of Telmark property. So it's exciting that this... It's exciting that, we're going to see a whole new future for Telmark. And Telmark has such a rich history as we await the start of the Elite Men's Classic field. Some other names I might point out. One exciting entry is the former Olympian national team member, Andy Newell. He's going to be wearing bib 329, and he skis now for the Bridger Ski Foundation. He and his wife, Erica Flowers, she's from originally Bozeman. They've returned there. He runs a training program, and she's working. Actually, Erica raced yesterday. I think she was fifth yesterday in the skate race. So Team Newell is trading off. I think she's probably doing support for Andy this morning, and I saw him before the start yesterday of the skate race, and he was helping prepare skis, and they're underway. And this is the first race of the fifth and last day of this year's 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner in classic technique. And what you saw was the men's elite field, a way different format. So many things have been done. Here you see him double poling out of the start area. Some of these team suits are really easy to recognize. Right there, you look at that lime green hat and the the team suit of LNR. That would be Brian Gregg. Those suits, if I can recognize some numbers there, those are the Sun Valley athletes of Peter Holmes and Logan Diekman, I believe. That's Andy Newell right at the front of the race. And Newell skiing in that, red with black and white trim, Bridger Ski Foundation. Interesting, Greg reached down and was adjusting his binding, and I'm not sure if he was just making sure it was tight or he wanted to change the position over the flex pocket of those classic skis. And just by trying to identify the team suit, skiers are trying to find. Actually, Andy's decided there's less snow not in the track. So, and in fact, you see the same thing from Greg. The problem is those tracks, when there's fresh snow, they're just like a trough, and they collect more snow than between the tracks. So this could be a distance marathon without track setting. Now you see Newell moving back into the tracks. I believe he's being marked right there behind him is the young winner, 19 years old, Johnny Hagenbrook. He's I'm working on my pronunciation for Johnny Hagenbrook. It's, I think, a better way to say his name, and I apologize. Johnny has established quite an early reputation at only 19 because for 2 years at Junior Worlds, he was part of the gold standard relay team for the U.S., twice winning the 4x5 relay at Junior Worlds. In fact, his teammate Gus Schumacher was teamed with another of our skiers in the team sprint this morning. They're on the power line now, and one of the things that you're going to notice in this period of COVID racing is that at the feed stations they cannot get feeds, but intermittently without being in the feed stations they can receive from their team feeds. And the reason for that is the Birkie has done everything they can to lessen congestion of spectators and athletes. First of all, spectators are not allowed at this year's race. Second of all, the feed stations have a very small staff. They do not do feeds. In fact, there is constant running water, and then there is a device by which you can put your foot down and get, if you want, an energy drink. None of these athletes, I think, you're going to see stop at these food stations. There you can see they're just about 1 kilometer into the race. And this is the women's elite wave lining up. And the top 4 women from yesterday are back on classic skis today. Here we're back to the front of the race with the men. Again, looks like Peter Holmes is in the second position in the Sun Valley team suit. And I believe that's, I might have misidentified. I'm sure that's Ian Torchia, he was second last year in the skate race, and he was part of the field of elite skaters yesterday, and he's out in front now in that Stratton Mountain suit. Yeah, it's Peter Holmes that's marking him right behind him in the Sun Valley suit. And here's the women's field underway. And as I said, all of our champions from yesterday, the podium finishers, in fact, the top 4 finishers are returning. And if you look to the right, that blue suit with black and white trim, that's APU skier Rosie Frankowski. And right in the middle there with a Stratton Mountain suit that matches that of Ian Torchia is our winner from yesterday. She won in 2019. She came back to take a second title in the skate race, and that's Elena Sonesson. Here you can see the start list. Caitlin Gregg is racing again. Caitlin was third yesterday. Sonesson won. Frankowski, it was a close finish coming into the stadium. They're a little bit of a distance before Caitlin finished. And then Katie Feldman, and she's racing too, and she's marking Rosie Frankowski, and she's another one of those Sun Valley athletes. And I'm trying to identify, if I can for you, here we're looking again. It's Torchia. He did this a lot in the skate race yesterday. He went to the front of the field and was content to kind of push the pace. Now you see Matt Liebsch. And, Matt's a guy who was a club skier at Minnesota, came to CXC, kind of on the B team originally, and really set his mark in terms of distance skate racing. But like so many athletes, including our own Jesse Diggins, American kids grew up primarily skating in this generation, and but as they became more proficient, I think they worked on improving their classic technique. And Matt's a guy who's been historically known as a phenomenal distance skate racer, but right now he's leading the field in the classic race. And here you see the young lady Elena Sonesson. This young lady is skied at Wayzata, then went to the University of Vermont, and now is at Stratton Mountain. Right behind her is another Twin Cities girl. I think it was South Central High School. Then she went to Northern Michigan skiing for Sten Feldheim, and now she's sitting in second place. She was second right behind the young Elena Sonesson yesterday. I'm sure she'd like to have an opportunity to beat Elena. Here you can see Liebsch. And then Torchia right on his, and then Holmes. And then it looks to me like another one of the Stratton Mountain. That's Sam Wood. And Sam was second yesterday in the skate race. Tyler Cornfield, he's wearing bib 306. He'll be in an APU suit, much like exactly like Rosie Frankowski's. And Tyler was third yesterday in the skate race. We have a unique opportunity because of all the efforts made by the American Birkebeiner to try to create an opportunity for safe and healthy racing in the COVID-19 era, and that is that the skate race and the classic race are on 2 separate days. So for the first time in the history of the American Birkebeiner, we see elite athletes who skated on one day are back to race this course in the classic technique. And as I was beginning to say earlier, it's a very different course. Unlike typically where it's point to point, leaving the Birkie start area at the former Telmark Lodge, skiing to the main street of Hayward. Now these athletes ski to 00 and turn around. So the interesting thing, if you ever look at a course profile of the American Birkebeiner, the greatest elevation change is in the first half of the race. And that's the high point of the course is what's called the Sealy Fire Tower. It's approximately around 12 kilometers from the start, maybe a little less than that, and not quite, a little further than halfway to 00. But at 00, they turn around. The classic trail is a little longer. Here, Elena Sonesson. This is the women's field we've got. And this is Elena leading Rosie, and then you see Caitlin, and then you see Katie Feldman. Actually, those athletes in classic technique are racing in exactly the finish order they finished yesterday. And if I get a chance through our snowstorm here, I'll try to give you the identity of those 2 young ladies who are holding on to these leading 4. they're beginning, more so than yesterday, they're quickly separating themselves from the rest of the field of elite women. And let me go down through that start list real quickly for the women. Feldheim is in bib number 608. 609 is Chris Hansen out of Rice Lake. Rosie Frankowski, second place APU skier, is 610. Rose Doda is bib 619. Excuse me, Rose is bib 613. She's out of Maine. Nora Gilbertson is bib 618. Lindgren 19. Gerritsen 633. Richmond 635. Ronander 642. Elaine Nelson 657. Then Caitlin Gregg 601. Delaney Fitzpatrick is wearing bib 603. And Josie Nelson 604. Elena Sonesson, yesterday's winner, 605. Another possibility is Vivian Het. She's a great skier, and that might, just speculating, that could be Vivian trying to hang on to the this train of four athletes who dominated yesterday's field. A little bit of a gap opening up at the back, but right now Sonesson, Frankowski, Gregg, and Feldman are back to doing the same kind of work they did yesterday. Four women leading the race, and as you can see, starting as we've not quite turned into the woods yet. Ian Torchia continues to lead the men's field. Ian's another one of these athletes from the Midwest, Minnesota, skiing at Northern Michigan. He's 25 years old, now training at that strong program at Stratton Mountain. Peter Holmes, the guy in second place, who had a great race yesterday, not in the top three, but a strong finisher in the skate race. He's won this classic race the last 2 years, but again, it was a very different field because the better prize money is in the skate race. Most of the elite athletes tend to focus on that, and since the races are held at the same time, it's not an opportunity like we have this year to compete in both. So it's going to be a quite different field in terms of the competition. Last year, the women's race was won by the young lady who grew up in Madison and is now skiing. She has dual citizenship for England, and that's Nicole Baith. And the young lady out of Germany, Anja Gruber, who had been second in the skate race the year before, came back. She was working as a graduate student in Boulder, and she finished second. But as I said, the field is quite different and way more competitive in the classic race this year just because of the opportunity to ski on a separate day. The question that I'd love to have an answer for you is, how are these skis prepared for this difficult condition for classic skiing? As you can see, Ian is ignoring the tracks. He's staying off to the side of the tracks. The groomers have had to work endlessly because we started with 2 days of virtual skiing on Saturday and Sunday of last week. Then since Wednesday, we've had days of opportunity for in-person racing on the Birkie Trail, and it's kind of alternated between skate and classic. So overnight, the trail is re-groomed. Fortunately, we have good snow depth on the Birkie Trail, so it was yesterday groomed deck to deck, no tracks, just for skate racing. Now, best line tracks are set. I think it's hard to tell in this falling snow, but I think they set 4 tracks on a best line through this wide thoroughfare known as the American Birkebeiner. This is a phenomenal trail system. The Birkie maintains in total about 100 kilometers throughout the winter at a price of around, the foundation spends about $365,000 a year just in trail maintenance costs. I think in this fresh snow, these athletes are probably particularly excited about the camera work that brings you this live stream, because now we see Liebsch in the front in the track, but a lot of times they're following the snowmobile track, which is the course of least resistance in this fresh snow. With this fresh snow, Klister wax would not work. It'd probably ice up unless you had a hard wax over the top. I'm guessing that this was, if they have wax skis, it's a hard wax. There was some debate before the race about whether anybody would try in the difficult wax conditions to just double pull the course, but everybody I've seen so far in that men's elite field is classic skiing, just like you see Elena. And, you know, that's requires that in the center, under the pocket of the ski, the wax pocket, there's a softer wax that perches or grips the snow. The other possibility is there's what are called zero skis that are waxless skis, particularly for almost this temperature range, right around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Or a new development in classic skis are these skin skis that really can perform phenomenally. My guess is, though, that at this level, a well-prepared ski with wax really can't be beat, and so my guess is, as we watch these athletes, they're probably all with wax skis. So 311 is Sam Wood from Sun Valley, and Peter Holmes, 307, leading the field. As I said, he's won this classic race the 2 previous years. And those are 2 teammates out of the Sun Valley Ski Education program that's administered by Rick Capalla. And now it looks like we're down to a field of 4. And as I said, interestingly, they are skiing consistently at this time in exactly the same order they finished the skate race. Led by Elena Sonesson, followed by Rosie Frankowski, Caitlin Gregg, and Katie Feldman. Here you see a running herringbone on some of these steep hills. That young man in our camera in the Stratton Mountain, that's Ian Torchia. Skied at Northern Michigan before graduating and moving on to the Stratton Mountain program. Had numerous World Cup starts, and a young guy who was second actually in the skate race last year in a strong field. In fact, the winner last year was the Norwegian Dyrhaug, and he beat last year he beat Duvald from France and Glorsen from Norway, as well as Erik Bjornsson, the outstanding American skier who just recently retired to his home in the Methow Valley. Here we're looking at, once again, Elena Sonesson leading the field of 4 that's immediately separated themselves. Peter Holmes looks like he's got good glide on those skis. You know, if you're not familiar with cross-country skiing, and we hope you are enjoying this coverage, but a little quick, simple background here. Yesterday in the skate race, there are no tracks. It's a deck flat with a little corduroy pattern, and the athletes are using skis that are a little shorter, different in terms of how they flex on the snow. The tip of the ski isn't as pronounced and long. In fact, the new Machu skis almost are flat. And then the boots are higher, they give more ankle support for that lateral motion of skating, and the poles are longer. Today the poles are shorter. Today the skis have a softer, longer tip so that they will follow the track where it's possible, and the flex pattern is different, and the boots are much more like a running shoe. They now have a neoprene cuff to keep the snow out, but they have a lot of flex in the base of the boot, so you can go up onto your toe just like in a running technique. My personal philosophy is that if you want to start the sport of cross-country skiing and you get a pair of classic skis, very easily you can go through the woods walking on classic skis. But if you really want to ski, I think the technique of skate skiing you can do more proficiently, quicker and easier than to really become a good classic skier and get the proper weight transfer and position over the skis. There you see the double pull technique being used by the APU skier on the far right of our screen up the hills. And that's Tyler Cornfield, I believe. And Tyler was third yesterday. And watching him go up those hills, it's possible, as I mentioned earlier, he might be one of the athletes who's decided that he's going to challenge himself on this course without kick wax. Because I can't imagine why he wouldn't be striding if he could, but and as he gets a little closer, we probably can tell it looks like he is on a skate ski, and in fact, they have combi boots too, which if you watch the skiathlon yesterday or 2 days ago from the World Championships, they're a boot that combines the the structure of both a classic and skate boot. There's no question in the women's field, though, everybody is striding. Interestingly, FIS has been concerned because they were fearful that the original technique of ski racing, classic technique, might be eliminated. So they established some standards that for shorter race courses, there had to be a designated kick zone, and you couldn't double pole in it. They also established limits to the length of the pole, so you didn't have, with a longer pole, if you're just trying to double pole, you have a little more leverage. And but on this course, the hilly trails of the American Birkebeiner in this glaciated area of northern Wisconsin, as you can see, the terrain is constantly up and down, undulating. And if Tyler can climb these hills up to the fire tower and back down, here we're just at 38 kilometers. And that's, when you see those K markers, that's the distance to the finish. You can see that without kick wax, he's got better glide because he ran right up on the tails of Torchia there. This is going through the first food station. Just to your right, you would have seen in the falling snow there, you can get a glimpse of it again, a trailhead. One of the things the American Birkebeiner has done, which is amazing, is along this corridor of both winter and summer recreation, there are trailheads at all the places where there are food stations. In a normal Birkie race where you go from the Telmark area down to the streets of Hayward, there are about 8 food stations. On this course, there are food stations at Timber Trail, which we just passed with the men. The women will be approaching soon. Then there's food station at the Fire Tower, then Bodecker, and then at Double O. So there are 4, but 3 of those will be repeated because it's an out and back. And one of the things that Birkie did is that they created several years ago a separate classic trail. So under a normal Birkie condition, after the start at about a couple hundred meters, classic skiers would go off to the left onto their own trail. And the advantage of this is that in the early part of the race, when the course is more congested, that there's no risk of skaters damaging the tracks for the classic skiers. And it's not until they would reach Double O which is not quite halfway, but almost to the finish in Hayward. And then both trails would merge together. But by that time, typically the race is thinned out and the density of skiers is not so great. So the inducement that you might want to try to pass somebody by skating over the classic tracks is far less. And it really has encouraged the growth in citizen racing of classic skiing. Here you see a running herringbone up one of the steeper hills. They're almost there. I believe, if I can recognize in the snow this part of the course, they're going to stride down into the Timber Trail food station. They started 5 minutes after the elite men. And as I said, very quickly they separated themselves from the rest of the field. And again, here you see Torchia, followed by Matt Liebsch in the Pioneer Midwest, the shop he's co-owner, that's really created a nice venue for skiers. And Matt's just a phenomenal athlete, balancing being a father in the last couple years of a little girl, Heidi. His wife is on the course at the same time. And he graduated in, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Brian Gregg. I apologize. Those two are so close as friends, I'm getting confused here. No, Matt's a father, a family with Mary's Beth, and he's a co-owner of a shop. He works really hard. I know this is for a ski shop. The busiest time of the year is it comes into the Birkie week, and so how this young man at this point in his life with a family and a business, and particularly a business that sells skis, with all the excitement and energy leading into the biggest ski race in North America, he is able to be out here in the leading field. And they've begun to separate themselves. So we've got, it looks to me like we've got Holmes and Wood and Liebsch and Torchia, and then from the athlete from APU, Tyler Cornfield. And surprisingly, I don't see our winner yesterday, Johnny Hagenbach, and I don't see Brian Gregg. There's a strong field. Andy Newell, I don't see it anymore with Diekman's not there. Finn O'Connor. These are elite athletes who had great races yesterday. And now you see Torchia. He's actually starting to separate himself from everybody except Peter Holmes. Well, there's a field of 5 right now as we look back through the forests of northern Wisconsin. The American Birkebeiner is one of 20 races in the World Lopet Series, which was created not only for elite but citizen racers. And if you do 10, you become a World Lopet Master. Here you see Rosie starting to push the pace at the front, and a little bit of a struggle by Caitlin Gregg and then Katie Feldman. Sonesson is quickly closing that gap up to Frankowski, not going to let her get away. These two separated themselves, but that wasn't until much later in the race when there was less than 10 kilometers to go. I was going to say this is one of the marathons in the World Lopet Series. The World Lopet has a rich history associated with Telemark. Tony Wise, the founder of Telemark, the guy who created in 1973 the American Birkebeiner ski race, and he started on the lake in Hayward at what's called the Lumberjack Bowl, property he owned at that time. Tony did so many things for this area. He started the Lumberjack Championships, he started the American Birkebeiner, and really set the tone for so many other activities, such as the Chequamegon Fat Tire Festival, for many years the biggest mountain bike race in North America, and the Sealy Hills Classic, the Sealy Roller Classic, There are just so many events that were an outgrowth of sort of the model that was established by Tony to bring people into the area to participate in silent sports events. And now you see some separation by Frankowski and Sonesson, and this is a pretty sizable gap in this falling snow. It looks like Feldman passed Gregg back there and trying to take chase to these top three. These two battled each other right to the finish. And the finish this year is very different. As I said, you're going to ski back up over the fire tower, come down into the Telmark properties on what has been the old Cortalopa course, or originally was the Berkey 10K outbound. And then you're going to come into a newly completed stadium just next to the start area we watched the race begin in. You're going to go over a new bridge that was constructed this summer, make a U-turn, and have about 100 meters into the stadium. But these two young ladies were neck and neck until Sonesson made a jump because she knew that that bridge was kind of a pinch point, and she wanted to be the first one. You see both of them taking some fluid. There are most likely no feeds on this course, and I can't imagine that they're going to stop at a food station to serve themselves by getting water or energy drink. Elena looked back, and probably she and Rosie are talking. Here now they're coming through that, and we're catching some of the men who started in the Classic Elite field. That's the Timber Trail food station. Back at the front of the race for the men. And it looks like Sam Wood is starting to fall off the back. Three guys still in contention there. There you see one of the elite men, and to their credit, as I watched yesterday's race, they are very sensitive of trying not to in any way interfere or impede the elite women. Traditionally, in recent years, in fact, the American Birkebeiner was the first race of the marathon circuit of the World Lopa to do this, and it was highly successful, as the women would start before the men. There you see some of the support sleds out on course. The Berkey is maybe, even though this trail goes through the forest, and it's very different than some of the World Lopa races. For example, the Engadine, which is a race that's going to be about the same distance, in fact a little bit shorter than this race, you go through 7 villages in the Engadine Valley of Switzerland, not far from the Italian border, and you start in Maloja, and you pass through villages including San Moritz and Pontresina before you finish in the small village of Champs. Here, when the race gun goes off, you start in the forest, you ski through the forest, and you finish in the forest. The nice thing about this trail, though, the whole trail in its entirety is primarily either on land owned by the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, but most primarily on land owned by Sawyer and Bayfield County. And so it's a trail that, in cooperation with those two counties, are able to be maintained throughout the winter and summer. And, you know, summer work is almost as important to ensure that erosion problems are resolved, that continual work is made to keep the deck of the trail flat, clear down trees, brush the sides so, you know, the forest doesn't begin to encroach. But in the winter, most importantly, continuously grooming it. And the thing that's been done in recent years, particularly as the American Birkebeiner has acquired a fleet of piston bullies, is constant grooming and tilling so the deck is really firm. And it creates, unlike this year where skiers are, I don't think we have any more than 1,000 skiers skiing on any one of the 5 days that are an option for racing. Just a footnote here, you notice that purple bib of the elite men that we're passing? That means that that individual has skied 20 or more Birkebeiners. Again, this is Rosie Frankowski, young lady growing up in Minneapolis, and then going to northern Michigan, and for many years training with APU, a strong program with Eric Flora. Probably the first notable skier was the outstanding athlete Keegan Randall. In recent years, the Bjornsons, Rosie Brennan, Becca Rohrbaugh, I mean, the number of alumni and current skiers from that APU program are phenomenal. That program has been run by Eric Flora for many years, who's just done an outstanding job of developing skiers. You saw a little bit of a struggle there as he was trying to do a running herringbone by Ian Torchia. You've got the Sun Valley athlete Peter Holmes right behind him, then the APU athlete Logan Diekman, and Tyler Cornfield. Tyler Cornfield, and then chasing those guys is the other Sun Valley athlete, Sam Wood. And yesterday in skate technique, Sam was second. So it looks like this has come down to a team effort by the two young ladies, Frankowski and Sonesson, that they're taking pulls, we might call, from bike racing, and the first skier having a little more difficult time breaking through the fresh falling snow, and the young athlete right behind has a little bit less effort that they have to make. So it's a team effort right now to get themselves to the finish line, separate themselves from Feldman and Gregg. And here All right, well, we're enjoying this 2021 American Birkebeiner. We're going to step away just for a few moments. We hope you're enjoying that, and we'll be back with you shortly. My name's Dennis Kruse.
There's nothing quite like the heart of winter in North America's largest cross-country ski paradise. With 400 kilometers of groomed trails to explore, the opportunities are endless. Plan an adventure at visitcookcounty.com. Cook County, Minnesota is the perfect winter wonderland. Crisp, clear days, incredible amounts of snow, and miles of groomed trails in the Superior National Forest. Plan your winter getaway at visitcookcounty.com.
Hi everyone, welcome to the test lab at Pioneer Midwest. This is where we look at the fit and quality of skis. So we do pressure mapping and here, and then we do the flex testing over here. And I want to let you know that every summer we go ski shopping, so we visit the manufacturers to look for the best skis that they've made, and then we pair those up to our customers. So if you want hand-picked skis that are perfect for you, please contact us, and we'd love to get you on our list.
And we're back with the 47th Slumberland American Birkebeiner. We're in the last day of racing. This is a classic technique that we've been watching. If you're just joining us, off the front now are two skiers in this fresh falling snow. And on your right, in the team suit of Sun Valley, is Peter Holmes, and on your left is Ian Torchia. Pushing up the hill, only using double pull technique, no kick wax, is the young man out of APU, Tyler Cornfield. And Tyler was third yesterday in the skate race. He's a veteran of this race. He's been, even though he trains in Alaska, he's been to the American Birkebeiner several times, familiar with this course. And now these athletes, unlike yesterday, this group of leaders, they were out here yesterday, they've skied this race, so they know what the terrain is going north from Double O, because most of these athletes, they might have trained on these hills of the American Birkebeiner, but until yesterday have never raced from Double O north towards the old Telemark Resort. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's exciting to announce that the American Birkebeiner has purchased 765 acres of the Telemark Resort. In the very near future, sadly, the destruction of the lodge, which is reached a point of no return in terms of deterioration, that will be the beginning of it being removed. This is through a cooperative effort with the Township of Cable in the state of Wisconsin. The Birkie plans to reopen many of the World Cup trails. In fact, they've already started that process in recent years, and they're going to try to create a great venue for all kinds of silent sports, including mountain biking, hiking, snowshoeing, to host events besides ski racings at this beautiful facility. They're going to begin a capital campaign in the spring to build a new, larger Nordic center, even than the Johnson Center that's at Double O currently, and expand snowmaking. They hoped in the future to add a biathlon course as well as a rope tow for using the former ski hill. Interestingly, that was the first development in 1947 when Tony Wise started the Telemark properties. He had come back from World War II having observed the beautiful recreational or winter recreational facilities in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and thought this could be a real asset to the economy of northern Wisconsin. And one of the first resorts in the country, maybe the first, to have chairlifts and snowmaking. And these two guys have become much like in the women's race, where you see Sonesson and Frankowski. Now you've got Holmes and Torchia working together, and trying to close that gap is the APU skier Tyler Cornfield. Torchia led much of the skate race yesterday, but was unable to make the podium. Tyler Cornfield did have a great race, finishing third. But Holmes has been a strong, my personal recollection of Peter is that he's, in particularly Super Tour races, one of the top sprinters in the country, but obviously a great classic skier, because as I've mentioned earlier, the last 2 years he's won the Birkie Classic. Here you see Sonesson, the young lady from Stratton Mountain, originally skiing at Wayzata and then the University of Vermont. And then right on her tails is Rosie Frankowski. And so it's going to be interesting to see if these two are able to maintain contact with each other to the finish. They had to sprint for the finish yesterday in the skate race. They're climbing the hills towards the fire tower. That's going to be the highest point. Then there are a couple of walls that they have to challenge themselves with, getting to Double O. There's one large climb before you get to the Bodecker food station, and then another climb up to Double O. And it looks like Tyler, just with double pull technique, has been able to catch these guys. So now we've got a lead field of 3. For a while it looked like Tyler wasn't going to be able to sustain the double pulling to keep himself in touch with the other two guys who were using more of the classic technique. You know, if the wax is working for you, it's a beautiful day to be out there skiing. We really had a great winter in northern Wisconsin. We got snow early. We really never had a single day. Typically in January or February, we'll have a week of high temperatures and thawing. That's never happened. There's hardly been any transformation of the snow. And fortunately, we did have 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks of extremely cold weather about 10 days ago or a week ago. And those temperatures led to many races 2 weeks ago being canceled just because the overnight lows were about 30 below and the highs were barely into like above 10 below. And then, in fact, a couple of people in the area recorded 40 below zero. So it's warmed up. It's just below. My guess is right now it's probably about on the course right now around 30 degrees based on the early morning temperatures and what the forecast was for today. But this is wet snow, big snowflakes. It looks like a snow globe out there. And, one of the other threats to this is just the athletes not getting too wet in this wet falling snow and then losing core temperature. But these guys are professionals. They've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure they're prepared to race the entire distance comfortably. As I was saying, Tony Wise started the Telemark Resort in 1947, and it was just an alpine resort at that time. Interestingly, most of the western states did not have alpine resorts at that time, and Tony actually was quite successful in the early years. Unfortunately, then, beginning in the late 60s, early 70s, he began to see what he thought was handwriting on the wall as more and more large mountains were opening in the west for alpine skiing, and easy access through both rail and plane were available to the communities of Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, a large population bases that he drew off of for his Telemark Resort. So he started to look at options, and one he was encouraged by some local Swedish residents was to consider cross-country skiing. And as everything that Tony did, he brought in what he thought were some of the best minds, Sven Wick, and anyway, he designed a really world-class ski trail, so much so that the first World Cup in 1978 was held on the trails of Telemark. And one of the assets that Tony enjoyed with the facilities he had at Telemark is when he finished his large lodge with over 200 rooms and numerous banquet rooms and nightclubs and rathskellers, you had a world-class ski venue right out the door. And even if you look at the outstanding venues like Val di Femme in Italy, or the Holmenkollen above the city of Oslo, or Falun, Sweden, what you find is you have a great venue for cross-country skiing, but you don't have a 200-room hotel right on site. So athletes, whether for racing or training, have to get in vans and buses and go to the site. Here, you just went right out the door. I know while the lodge was open in its final years, some Paralympic World Cups were held, and the athletes loved it because they could roll down the hallway in a wheelchair, go out the door, and transfer to a sit ski instantly. And this venue not only hosted the first World Cup, but it was also the first real meeting in which the idea of the World Lopet was entertained. And that was, again, at the initiative of Tony Wise for the February 1978 American Birkebeiner. He invited the people who were responsible for some of the older and great marathons of Europe, particularly the Swedish Vasaloppet, the Norwegian Birkebeiner, the Italian Marcialonga, the French Transoxiane, the Swiss Engadine, to come and witness his race, and at that time propose the idea of joining together and forming an international federation to promote marathon skiing. And that summer it was formalized in Uppsala, Sweden, and the World Lopet has now grown to encompass 20 races, including such places where you might not necessarily think of a rich history of marathon skiing, and that's like Argentina, New Zealand, Iceland, China. Another recent addition a few years ago was Russia. The World Open now has races in Poland, Estonia. In fact, the Estonia Tartu Marathon was just held last week. It was one of the races where the country felt that the race organization, much like the American Birkebeiner, had maintained enough safeguards for the pandemic that it wasn't unreasonable to let the race proceed. As I said, the American Birkebeiner has really changed the format of every event from its normal schedule and venue for this year in the pandemic, so that they could offer an opportunity for skiing in the woods of northern Wisconsin and still subscribe to the standards and protocols of the CDC. So we're looking at Holmes, and right behind him, Torchia, and then keeping that double pole working, Tyler Cornfield. Now the thing is, the finish of this race is pretty much coming downhill the last few kilometers. And if Cornfield, Tyler, can stay with those top two guys, I don't think there's any question he has the advantage. We've seen this earlier when he glided up on those guys. Without any kick wax on the ski, using skate skis, he has a much quicker glide than the two gentlemen we see right now, Peter Holmes and Ian Torchia. These trails of the American Birkebeiner are used for not only the American Birkebeiner, but numerous other ski races, such as the Sealy Hills Classic, the Pre-Birkie, as well as the Birkie Trailhead has become really an ideal venue for races such as the Wisconsin High School Championships, a competitive race series for collegiate and junior racers, as well as masters, called the Gitchigumi Games. So this is a venue that is used increasingly for new events, and I think we're going to continue to see that with the acquisition of the 765 acres of formerly Telmark properties. I know the Birkie has a big vision and a lot of ambition, and now we're looking at Torchia. He's starting to make an effort to separate himself. Cornfield drifted back before based on the terrain. And it looks like Peter is struggling a little bit, and Ian now is following. You can see that snowmobile track that he's decided is really giving him the course of least resistance. You know, this year we had about 8,300 skiers registered for the American Birkebeiner. A little over a third of those are doing the event virtually. Less than 5,000 actually have come to Cable, Wisconsin, and the Birkie Trailhead to compete on 5 days of opportunities to race on this beautiful Birkie Trail. So it's very different. Last year, in all the events, including the Birkie, the Barnaburnie, the Junior Birkie, the Prince Hoken, which is sponsored by Northern Lakes, or the Kortaloppet, sponsored by Solomon, or the Slumberland American Birkebeiner, there were 13,500 skiers. So it's a dramatic reduction in terms of the number of participants. Also, last year, about 2,845 volunteers were necessary. This year, that number is dramatically reduced because of fewer food stations and a real effort to, make sure there was no congestion of people in a single, or there was social distancing is a better way to say that. And as I was mentioning earlier, at these feed stations, there are a few volunteers, mostly to assist the skiers in trouble, not to give feeds, not to provide cookies or goo or bananas or, drinks. And now you can continue to see Ian Torchia working his way a little bit, giving himself distance from Peter Holmes. We're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back shortly.
Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming.
Hello, this is Matt Liebsch from Pioneer Midwest, and welcome to our shop. I wanted to let everyone know that by shopping with us and supporting us, it supports the organizations that we all love. So we're sponsors of the Berkey, City Lakes Loped Foundation, and the Boss Loped, along with high school skiing in Minnesota and other states as well. So we thank you for your support, and we look forward to continuing supporting the Nordic ski community around the country.
Here you see at the front of the race, Ian Torchia starting to create some separation between he and Peter Holmes, and then in the distance you can still see Tyler Cornfield. Ian was second last year. I think he came into this race in the skate race yesterday thinking he was going to have a pretty good shot at a podium. Didn't quite accomplish that. So he's out here with a vengeance today, classic skiing this course of about 45 kilometers. When Tony Wise started this race in 1973, he started the race in Hayward, skied to the Telemark Resort in just outside Cable, and the trail was very different. It was only in classic technique. The skate technique had not yet been used by cross-country skiers. The trail was very narrow, 2 tracks wide. He used whatever he could find in the forest. He incorporated some forest roads, railroad bed. He used some snowmobile trails. And then once you got close to Telemark, he had developed, by 1973, a fairly nice trail network, so you came in on the trails of Telemark to finish at the resort. If you never had a chance to experience the American Birkebeiner, the first years when he then turned the race around, you would actually start on the golf course and ski up the Alpine Hill, which was quite a sight, and down an alpine run on the backside, and then go into the forest and the trails of Telemark and proceed to Hayward, finishing on Lake Hayward, just reversing the course at the Lumberjack Bowl. And I think the year was about 1980. He did get some grant money, and he was out in the forest widening the trail, making it a lot safer and easier to ski. And over the course of the subsequent years, first by Tony, and then beginning in the late 1980s, the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, when it took over the responsibility of the race, continuing work has been done on the trail. And this is a year-round project. In the summer, correcting problems of erosion, clearing down trees, brushing the sides of the trail, and then, of course, maintaining grooming throughout the winter. And now you see Torchia starting to make this a one-man race. If you've watched any of the World Championships from Oberstdorf, Germany, where they've had very warm and slushy conditions, that's when sometimes staying on top of these narrow skis is the most difficult. As you see a couple of times where Ian kind of falters a little bit, but this wet, deep snow is not the best of conditions for skis that are so narrow and so light. So he's doing a great job. Obviously, he's an outstanding athlete. He's had numerous World Cup starts. I'm sure his ambitions are to continue to progress and in the future look for Olympic starts and World Championships. Rosie Frankowski has, one of the top two Americans in the women's race. She's a Winter Olympian and skied in Seefeld at the World Championships. Caitlin Gregg similarly skied World Championships, in fact medaled in the World Championships, getting a bronze medal as well as an Olympic athlete. So it's an outstanding field of American athletes. If you look at the start list last year, you saw a number of French and Norwegian skiers at the front of the race. You saw the Finnish woman Riitta-Liisa Ropinen in second place. The winner in the women's race was from Australia. This year, because of COVID, there hasn't been an opportunity to attract an international field, but we have been fortunate for the American Birkebeiner to really do have some of America's top young skiers who aren't by chance competing simultaneously in Oberstdorf, Germany. It's a nice picture of technique by in the striding of Ian Torchia. I've seen some of the videos he's done for CXC over the course of the last couple of years, helping with some coaching and technique instruction, and he's a great teacher. And now it looks like he's really turned this into a one-man race, and he's still got a long way to go. I mean, he's not reached the halfway point yet, so to be out there in that fresh snow. The women, though, continue to have this partnership of Frankowski and Sonesson, and that's Elena in front in the red suit, and right behind her in the blue and black of APU is the young lady Rosie Frankowski. Elena has begun a stellar career in cross-country skiing. In fact, in the year 2021, she was on World Cup races and returned to the United States. She didn't get named to the World Championship team, so she's come back here to race in the American Birkebeiner. As I said, she wasn't here to compete last year, but 2 years ago she did win the race. In fact, she broke away with quite a distance still to go and soloed to the finish as the Birkie champion of 2019. Yesterday, Ken Larson, the CEO of Slumberland, which for a number of years now has been the title sponsor, was here at the venue for the skate race. And I think those of us who love skiing can't say enough to help support our sponsors, because without them, events like this, particularly when all the changes have to be made and the number of participants dramatically reduced. This is, I believe, the athletes, just to give you an idea where they are in the course, this looks like the Fire Tower food station, which means, and this is about 1.5 kilometers past the high point. So now they're going to have a couple of walls that they're going to be challenged by approaching 00, but basically they're descending in elevation to the 00 turnaround. Here you see the double poling of Ian Torchia. Here this is what in classic is called the diagonal stride. You can see how wet the snow is as you see the scenery behind in the forests of Bayfield County. There's heavy snow on every, well, actually we're in Sawyer County right now, but yeah, on every branch and tree in the forest adjoining the trail. It's interesting, a number of techniques in classic skiing. One is, as you saw, even when now he's kind of a modified herringbone as he runs up this hill, but Klæbo, the great Norwegian sprinter, in fact, they're starting to name this. You see skiers not so much trying to kick and glide as just kick, almost running on their skis up hills. Now you see the traditional kick and glide exhibited by Torchia as he moves ahead in this race, really separating himself from any competition. And as I said, I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that this far in, I mean, with such a distance to go in this race, that he wouldn't prefer to have somebody to help break trail, because as you can see, he's using the tracks, but he's pushing a lot of fresh snow in those tracks. So it's a considerable effort that's necessary to do that. And we're back to the women. Sonesson and Frankowski. Almost synchronized double poling there. And this is the turnaround. So he's reached the point where he starts to go back north. You can see in the back the Samuel Johnson Nordic Center. That's a recent addition to this trail, a beautiful facility at Double O. Also, it's completed in recent years is a bridge, the Keylink Bridge over Double O. So skiers during race day, if they continued south, they don't have a road crossing. If you come to this venue, there are lit trails for night skiing. There's a separate classic trail called the Easy Strider. There's, alternate loops that are groomed and lit. So it's really a nice touring center. You saw him lift that left ski to kind of shake that quad out a little bit. And this is fairly flat. Then he's going to have some descents. And then again, unfortunately, he's going to have to start the climb for the second time up to the fire tower, the high point of the north end of the course. Swack seems to be working well. Looking back at some earlier results, in 2018, Ben Saxton, who's on the U.S. ski team now, he was the classic winner. And then, as I pointed out, in 2019 and 2020, it was Peter Holmes, who for a long time was skiing with Ian Torchia and challenging him, but now Ian looks back to see exactly how far. This is a part of the county forests of Sawyer County that has had some recent timber harvesting. He's proceeding back towards the Boat Decker food station. This is a part of the trail a lot of recreational skiers use, either skiing out of Double O, or you can drive up Boat Decker Road, and there's a large parking area at the warming hut there. And the nice thing for citizen recreational skiers is these two parallel trails, the Birkie Classic and the Birkie Skate. They're interconnected in various places, so you can do out and back loops from some of these food stations, one of the more popular being the Boat Decker food station. So we've got a running time here. He's not quite halfway, and it's about an hour 10. So we're looking at, probably assuming he can maintain this level of energy and effort, around 2:20, 2:30 finish time for Torchia. And unless he just hits the proverbial wall, I think he's pretty much securing his place as the classic champion for the Slumberland American Birkebeiner in 2021. Probably shouldn't say that because those tend to be jinxes. But the women's race is much more competitive still, with Frankowski and Sonesson, the two who raced together to the finish in the skate race, still right together. Now, simultaneously, the Cordelopet is being run in classic technique. Yesterday, Kieran Mullen won the skate race. He's out here today racing the longer distance in classic technique. He's a young skier who's finishing his career at St. Olaf. Also in the Cordelopet Classic today is the former Olympian, and if you're from the Twin Cities, this is a name you all know, Kevin Brockman. I saw him on the start list for the Cordelopet Classic today. So the Cordelopet is a distance of approximately 27 kilometers, and the Prince Håkon, which is an event which was added in recent years, initially for young athletes. We've also found that it's become more popular with some of the skiers who've skied numerous Birkies, maybe 20, 30. In fact, we have many skiers who are now called Uberleggers who have done 30 or more Birkies, but they want to come to Hayward. They want to catch the Birkie fever, enjoy the energy and excitement of Birkie weekend, and not necessarily at this point in their life want to be challenged by the hills of the American Birkebeiner Trail over distances of the Cordelopet or the Birkie. So they ski the 14-kilometer Prince Håkon. And that's on these same trails. It's just that as they go south, they turn earlier and head back north to the finish. Here you see a picture of our leading women, Frankowski in the blue and white. And we're going to break away for a short time. We hope you're enjoying the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner in Classic Technique.
Welcome to the back shop at Pioneer Midwest. We are your one-stop shop for all things service. This last year we invested in a Tazari stone grinder machine, so we are doing grinds at the world-class level, and we've also got hotbox and all the wax needs that you could possibly think of. So if you're looking for a fresh tune or wax service, definitely let us know and we can help you out.
Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun coming. Honey, we can start running. I can see the sun
And here you see our leader. This is Ian Torchia. He broke away from Peter Holmes and also Tyler Cornfield. Tyler was attempting to do this course without kickwax, double poling up and down these hills of the American Birkebeiner Trail in Sawyer and Bayfield County. Torchia now has made this a one-man race, and he still looks really strong, looks good. I'm sure the idea of becoming the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic champion is providing him with some extra energy. As I look back, as we get a little longer shot through the forest, I do not see Peter Holmes. It will be interesting to see if Holmes has tired and how Tyler's doing using just a double pull technique. But in the women's race, it continues to be an event featuring the top two finishers from yesterday, Elena Sonesson and Rosie Frankowski. And it's Frankowski now in the front. She finished second in a close finish to Elena. And those two seem to have reached an agreement that we're just going to work together in this fresh, wet, falling snow to the finish. They haven't quite reached the turnaround point. It looks to me this is the last hill you climb going to Double O. And the way they're striding up it, yeah, I was going to say I'd probably be doing well, I don't say probably, I can guarantee I've been herringboning up most of that hill. This is the last little pitch before they reach the top, and then they're going to stride into the Nordic Center at Double O. Rosie has been working at APU now as an instructor. In the course of her collegiate racing in northern Michigan and then racing for the Alaska Pacific University program, simply known as APU, she's acquired 2 master's degrees. And so, and Elena is a University of Vermont graduate. Both of these are young ladies who come out of that strong Minnesota high school ski program. Elena skiing at Wayzata and Rosie at South Central. I was told some years ago that there are more high school skiers in Minnesota than young skiers in Sweden, Norway, and Finland combined. My one... I did turn it off. I was going to say the one thing that I might say about that comment, and here you see them at the turnaround. They're now at the Johnson Nordic Center at Double O, and they're going to make a U-turn. See some team feeds there. And ahead of him on the trail, he had a 5-minute difference at the start. I think probably he's extended that, but this is the young man, Ian Torchia, another product of that great program in Minnesota. Anyway, I was going to say that the comment I'd heard about more high school ski racers in Minnesota than Sweden, Norway, and Finland combined, it's kind of apples to oranges because in those Scandinavian countries, well, first of all, it's not a sport associated with the school program. It's the club sport. Second, at that age, to continue to be supported by a club, it's kind of like maybe playing hockey in Minnesota. Or, you have to be a top athlete. Where, to the credit of Minnesota, I think when Jesse Diggins was in the Stillwater program, there were a couple hundred kids in the cross-country ski program in the high school. Now, that group, how many were serious skiers and training to race? very few, but it does get a lot of people out in the winter on skis. In fact, speaking of that, maybe one of the best programs that I've been familiar with in recent years is the Nordic Rocks program of CXC, and they began actually working in the development of a inexpensive ski and distributed to school districts, and the number of school districts now across the Midwest is phenomenal. The program keeps growing. If you want to learn more about it, go to the CXC website and look for Nordic Rocks. But it's amazing. They provide teaching manuals to the the grade school teachers. The primary premises, they'll support you with skis and a lesson plan. The only requirement is you've got to get kids outside to recreate. Now, do we care if they become, lifelong skiers or become elite skiers? No, it's just a program to try to get children outdoors in the winter and to learn to enjoy snow, particularly on skis. And it's really been a successful program. One of the best things that I'm familiar with to grow the sport of cross-country skiing. This is Frankowski of APU, the program, as I said, out of Alaska, coached by Eric Flora, and right on her tail is Elena Sonesson. Doesn't seem to have any effort whatsoever sustaining that tip-to-tail distance. They're still in that section of the trail approaching Bodecker. I just have to comment for those of you, I hope you're enjoying this live coverage. This is pretty phenomenal because I can't get cell coverage in most of this part of the state of Wisconsin because of the dense forests. And to bring this picture from the trail is in my humble opinion, quite phenomenal, particularly in the fresh falling snow and the fact that we're just in dense forest here. When I first was familiar with this area, this is quite some years ago, I want to stand corrected. I was saying South Central. Rosie's from Minneapolis Southwest High School. Of our competitors yesterday, Erica Flowers had done a number of World Open races, but looking at the resumes of these two young ladies, Elena Sonesson has skied the Merino Muster at the Snow Farm in New Zealand, and it's a great facility. The reason she was there, Jessie Diggins has won that race several times, is because the U.S. ski team does summer training at the Snow Farm in New Zealand, and they're typically there for their World Open Marathon, the Merino Muster. And if you ever have a chance, visit New Zealand, visit the program there. The people who own the Snow Farm are the most generous and hospitable, and it's a great course, a great race. But I would say that's true of all the World Open. Each of them is distinct. Still coming up this spring is a race in Iceland, and to be honest, I haven't heard if they're going to be affected by the COVID pandemic. I know Iceland as a country has done a very good job of controlling the virus. This is Torchia, still working that double pole. Still seems to have wax. Here he comes through a food station. And this is the Fire Tower food station. This has got to be a good feeling because he's going to have a climb after Timber Trail, but he's going to do a lot of descending. I know when the race used to go from Hayward to Telemark, as the poor skier I am and was, I was excited at this point because I knew that there's going to be a lot of time for recovery. Or no, I stand corrected. I'm premature on that analysis. This is the Bodecker food station. So, sorry, Ian, you still got some climbing to go before the fire tower. He does descend for a little bit right out of Bodecker. You'll see some downhills here, and then start the climb to the fire tower. It's interesting, these two parallel trails, the skate trace and the classic trail, you would think they would almost be identical, but they're in some places close together, particularly because we wanted the trails to join at the food stations, but in most places the terrain seems quite different. It's not like they follow almost identical contours through the forests of Wisconsin. Now you see Elena at the front pushing through the fresh snow. Seems like the whole Sonesson family are skiers. Both of these young ladies, I would say, have the advantage that in the most important part of your year-round training program this summer, they work with two such strong programs, Stratton Mountain and APU, and I think they have the advantage of training with such talented women as in the case of APU, Rosie Brennan and Sadie Maube Bjornsson. They were the team for the United States this morning in the freestyle sprint racing, and Oberstdorf finishing 5th. But Rosie has the advantage of training with them in the off season, as well as another field of strong athletes at APU that Eric has brought to the program. In the case of Elena Sonesson, she's training in the summer months with people like Jessie Diggins and Sophie Caldwell Hamilton. So again, they're being pushed and challenged by some of the best skiers in the world, unquestionably. Here these young ladies are catching some of the elite classic men who left 5 minutes before they did. In 1973, the very first American Birkebeiner had 34 men and 1 woman, and the woman was a bandit skier, Jackie Lindskog, because Tony wasn't sure that the distance of the race, approximately 55 kilometers, wasn't too far for women. And to the credit of Jackie, she wasn't going to follow that subscription, so she jumped into the race and became the first finisher. One thing that's exciting is skiing this week has been Ernie St. Germain, who has the unique status. He is the only skier to have completed all 47 American Birkebeiners. And he was a young man, obviously, in 1973, got the fever, as we say, and has continued to be a strong participant in the American Birkebeiner, really becoming in recent years such an ambassador for the Birkie. Ernie St. Germain, if you ever get a chance to talk to Ernie, he's just a delightful gentleman, always with a big smile on his face. And so congratulations to Ernie as he continues his successful reign of continuous 47 American Birkebeiners. One of the things that's been kind of interesting in this pandemic year is that to allow people to enjoy participation in the Birkie, over 40 sites were partnered with the American Birkebeiner Foundation to create virtual venues, and that's all across the country. A lot of them here in the Midwest, but many also in the West and even New England. So people could go out and ski a course at their local touring center and finish the distances of the Kordelopet or the Birkebeiner and get credit. So you could register. The Birkie would send you all of the, your hat, your bib, and you could participate in the Birkie. Some of these have created, I think, some unique opportunities. One of my favorite was seeing on the internet a picture from the 9 Mile Ski Trails in Wausau, where a big fan was set up as you came into the finish, which said headwind on Lake Hayward, which if you ski to the finish in Hayward, often that's a challenge when you come onto that flat lake for 3 kilometers, and it is frequent at this time of the year in late February that there is a headwind. There you see one of the ambassadors that's out on the trail just to give assistance as skiers come through. If they have questions, want to know how far they are, where's the next food station, that's the purpose of these Birkie ambassadors on the trail. The other thing is with this fresh snow, they are skiing in the tracks, and so it's going to help the athletes a little bit. We see the running time on our screen, just over an hour and a half that our leader's been out there on course, Ian Torchia, and Ian is moving towards the Fire Tower food station. He's past Bodecker. With the ownership of the Telmark property, the Birkie is looking forward to possibly working with some business partners as entrepreneurs to develop on site, maybe a coffee shop, a tap room, a hotel, a campground. And I'm talking to Executive Director Ben Popp. If you have any interest in you or your business in those opportunities, you should contact the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, and they'll be happy to describe what those opportunities might be. I personally always felt that the terrain of northern Wisconsin, on which the American Birkebeiner Trail is built, gives you one of the best undulating ski courses. You can see 17 kilometers left to go for Ian Torchia. And here comes our 2 women. They continue to work in tandem. But I've always thought this is one of the best venues in the world for cross-country skiing because of these constant transitions with the up and down hills. Tony Wise was such an innovator for cross-country skiing. He, as I said already in this broadcast, was really responsible, in my opinion, for the founding of the World Lopet. He did host the first World Cup. He also was so creative in his thinking about how to promote the sport of cross-country skiing. So in the early 80s, he built what he was referred to as the Coliseum. Initially, he had plans to have a underground, solar generated energy source with, berming, a large facility with indoor tennis courts and a rasp gallery and a cafeteria and a ski shop. And unfortunately, because of change in politics in the United States, the funding for that kind of program was terminated. He already had kind of committed to the concept, the idea of building this large facility, and so he proceeded to build a big structure above ground, which many people feel was a big contributor to his financial difficulties subsequently. He also ran into some no snow years in those early years of the 1980s after he'd taken on this commitment. But one of the things he did, and he had planned to do more of, but didn't have the opportunity, is to have inside stadium seating and run a ski race. He did this on one occasion through the Coliseum. So you went through the forests of the Telemark properties on the World Cup trails, and then you would lap through the Coliseum on snow put down on the floor of the Coliseum. The Coliseum did exist for several years. It did have a great Rathskeller. It did have a cafeteria. It had a large ski shop as well as indoor tennis courts, which created a great venue for the after Birkie awards and parties, dances. But Telemark Resort, if you never had an opportunity, was a 5-star facility in northern Wisconsin. Emerald de Casa, the famous chef, worked there for a while. When Tony would have entertaining acts, he had B.B. King. I mean, the list of luminaries from the entertainment field who played at Telemark is amazing, considering how remote it is. But there was a nightclub, there was a Red Arrow Room, there was another big banquet room. The facilities were unparalleled. Over 200 initially really nice hotel rooms with balconies overlooking the ski venue, tennis courts. Tony had an airport that is adjacent still, the Cable Airport. So, the premise was you could fly right in, and basically you only walked a distance of about 30 meters from where you could park your plane into the lodge. And I was told a story about one of the most noted journalists of Nordic skiing, Paul Robbins, who unfortunately we've lost. But Paul talked about the first time he met Tony. Tony was living in New York, and he got a call from Tony saying, "Hey, we're going to have this Nordic ski race," which I believe was the first World Cup, and I understand you cover Nordic skiing, you should come out. And he said, "Well, that's only in a few days." And Tony said, "No problem. There's a ticket waiting for you, I think at LaGuardia." But anyway, he flew into Minneapolis, and Tony had a smaller plane waiting there and flew him right to the airport and greeted him at the entrance of Telemark. And Paul told me that he covered the race and had gone to his room, and Tony called late that night of the Saturday and said, "You need to take this tape back of the ski race for ABC for their Wide World of Sports program." And Paul said, "I don't think that's possible." And Tony, being Tony, said, "Oh no, it's possible." Again, a small plane flew him into Minneapolis. He got a red eye to New York, and when he landed, somebody was there to pick up the tape. And at, I think it was like 3 o'clock, there was a couple of minutes of coverage of cross-country skiing from Telemark Resort. This was before electronic transferring of that kind of information. So, Tony was just such a promoter. The early years of the Birkie, he flew a ice carver in from Linz, Austria. He had the entire University of Wisconsin marching band present. You see them coming through a feed station here, these athletes, and a little bit of a gap is being opened by Rosie. And as I look at the contour of that station, they have now moved through Bodecker, a little behind the progress being made by Torchia. So now again there we'll have some descents and then make their final climb to the fire tower, and then start to drop down to the finish here at the Birkie Trailhead, the new finish stadium. And as you can tell from our picture, it started snowing It did. The forecast I saw was snow was expected overnight. I got up early this morning. There was no snow. I thought that's great. And then as I came to the venue, it started snowing, and it has continued to snow. And it's wet, heavy snow coming down, large snowflakes. My guess is the temperatures are about 32 degrees. So it's not the easy of wax conditions. Now, this is a good question. There was a little bit of separation at the food station, and it looks like Frankowski is trying to continue that. But, from my perspective, Elena is not going to let Rosie get away. We'll see. Yeah, she's starting to close it down. So as I watch the body language of these two athletes and the response to that little gap that occurred when there was a feed, my guess is they're going to come to the finish. But we're going to step away. Hope you're enjoying this 2021 American Birkebeiner.
Everyone, it is Sophie Caldwell checking in from a beautiful sunny Davos, Switzerland, and very snowy. I just wanted to wish you good luck in the Birkie today. I can't wait to be home some winter doing the Birkie myself. It's something I've always dreamed of. I know it's a little different this year, but I'm sure it will still be special. And I'm sending you speedy vibes and lots of luck.
Hi, my name is Matt Liebsch from Pioneer Midwest, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are one of the largest ski shops in North America, and we have a exclusive collection of race closeouts. So we've got a bunch of Rosinal, and we've got Solomon skis, and we carry Fisher Machus and Atomic as well. But since we're big enough, we can usually leverage our buying power with manufacturers, and we can get a bunch of race closeouts. So this spring we will have a bunch of options, and you'll be able to check those out on our website at pioneermidwest.com to check our selection.
There is a place in northern Minnesota where summer is calling you to open up, to jump in through freshwater days and campfire nights, new trails and new adventures. Breathe deeper, dare bigger, discover a place of pure colors and winding roads, village walks and summit views. This is where you feel free. Journey north to Cook County, Minnesota. Plan your adventure at visitcookcounty.com.
And this is Ian Torchia. He's been our sole leader for quite some time, breaking away from Peter Holmes and Tyler Cornfield even before the halfway point of the race, and he's just out there solo in the forest in this falling snow as he works his way back towards the finish at Telemark. I was mentioning the opportunities to ski without visiting the Birkie Trail by these virtual sites throughout the country, over 40 of them. The other thing is that if you do live somewhere, and of course in this era of the pandemic, you're encouraged not to do a lot of traveling, and you don't have snow or close vicinity of snow, then the Birkie has equated other types of activities that you can do which would equal an American Birkebeiner, such as running or biking or roller skiing or even paddling or swimming. So if you went to the Birkie website and you wanted to virtually participate, you can see subscribe the distance that you would have to complete to equal either a Kordelopet, a Prince Håkan, or an American Birkebeiner. Also, simultaneously, skiers continue to go off in the citizen waves of this day of classic racing in the Slumberland American Birkebeiner. And we also have participants, as I mentioned, in the Solomon Kordelopet and the Northern Lakes Co-op Prince Håkan. And these are our two leading women, Rosie Frankowski and Elena Sonesson. Elena's 24 years old and Rosie's 29 years old, both coming from the Midwest, but probably given the age difference, I doubt that their careers for the Midwest ski team and other events might not overlap. Here you see the finish area, the new finish stadium. Actually, this didn't exist a year ago. Shows you, I think, all the ambition of the American Birkebeiner under the direction of their director, Ben Popp. It's been amazing for me to watch the growth and the maturity of the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation over the years, and it's really become a stable force in this area economically, and really a leading voice for silent sports. And I think really presenting a great future. In fact, this spring, the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation, with the support of the board of directors, is going to make an effort to bring in the year 2024 a World Cup series of races here at this time of the Birkie, to these trails on the newly acquired properties of the former Telmark Resort. I think Tony Wise would be so excited. He was such a promoter of cross-country skiing. He believed in both promoting elite skiing and supporting the elite field of athletes, as well as encouraging citizen participation in sports. So on what will be the 50th anniversary of the American Birkebeiner, to bring to this venue that Tony created and initiated a World Cup series of races, most likely in conjunction with the community of Minneapolis, I just think would be the most fitting 50th anniversary present that could be presented to the American Birkebeiner and the memory of Tony Wise. It's amazing that these two young ladies have been so consistent in their performance over 2 days in two entirely different techniques of skate racing and classic racing. And yesterday at this time in the race, they were with two other athletes, Caitlin Gregg, who finished third, and Katie Feldman, who finished fourth, as well as I think at this point Erica Flowers, who finished fifth, was still in contact with the leading women. And it was then that Erica struggled a little bit, fell off the back, and after really about the timber trail, as I recall, that's where the break was made by Elena and Rosie, and then Caitlin was giving chase by herself, and then behind her was Feldman, and then Flowers. But now there's been some separation for almost from about 10 kilometers into the race. We're going to step away again for a moment.
Hi, my name is Matt Liebsch from Pioneer Midwest, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are one of the largest ski shops in North America, and we have an exclusive collection of race closeouts. So we've got a bunch of Rosinal, and we've got Solomon skis, and we carry Fisher, Machus, and Atomic as well. But since we're big enough, we can usually leverage our buying power with manufacturers, and we can get a bunch of race closeouts. So this spring we will have a bunch of options, and you'll be able to check those out on our website at pioneermidwest.com to check our selection.
And through the more heavily falling snow, we see the silhouette of Ian Torchia. And here are our top women. They've stayed together through the entire race. You know, somewhere out on the course, when Torchia broke away, the last athlete who was able to stay with him was Peter Holmes. And then behind, and Peter, as I mentioned a couple times, was the winner of this event, the classic race, the previous 2 years. Tyler Cornfield, who was third yesterday, he was double poling. He was the last skier that Holmes and our leader Torchia had skied away from. Somewhere else, somewhere out there on the course, or there's some outstanding athletes. Logan Diekman, Sam Wood, who was second yesterday, Brian Gregg, Matt Liebsch, who was at the front of the race for a while in the early stages of the event. The veteran athlete with such a resume, Andy Newell, is out there somewhere in the forests of northern Wisconsin. If we start to see some bib numbers, Andy's wearing 329, Matt Liebsch is 319, Brian Gregg is 313, Sam Wood is 311, Logan Diekman is 310. Our winner yesterday is bib 304. That's Johnny Hagenbuch. But this is Elena Sonesson. Easy to recognize her and Rosie Frankowski. They've spent 2 days now together on this trail and continue to work their way towards the finish and the title of 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic Champion. Rosie has had such an outstanding career, an Olympian, skied the World Championships, a long list of World Cup starts, does not have a title in either skate or classic racing at the American Birkebeiner. Elena won yesterday in skate, won in 2019 in skate, so I'm sure Rosie would like to be able to say she's a Birkie champion. The question is she going to be able to accomplish that? And the snow continues to fall. In fact, looking at our pictures from the trail as well as looking out into the stadium, it looks to me, if anything, the snowfall has gotten heavier and more intense. That's a view of our stadium. You can see the running time for the men is just under 2 hours, 1:54, and for the women, again, they started 5 minutes later, so their running time is 1:49. Here's Elena Sonesson, a nice, easy stride here. You can see the tracks to her right of our snowmobile camera as she continues to ski in the tracks, trying to find the track with the least snow in it. They do have the advantage that there are some men ahead of them. So unlike the men who are kind of breaking trail, there were, I was talking to the chief technical delegate, Scott Wilson, and this was before the competition began. 12 forerunners were sent out on the course to try to help clear the track. The problem was when the forerunners went out, it was hardly snowing. In fact, I think they began well before the snow began to fall. So, and now the snow is only increasing in intensity. So it's really making for a challenging day on the American Birkebeiner ski trail. I want to extend a congratulations to the staff of the American Birkebeiner Ski Foundation. As they prepared for this event in this era of the pandemic, they basically modified everything. And for instance, there is no warming tent, there is no great hall that's available and open to skiers. Skiers are directed to drive to the start, sit in their cars in expanded parking, and a special FM station was set up so you can be in your car, listen to the FM station, and then you are given a heads up as when you should proceed to the start, with the one-day race spread out over 5 days, and with the number of participants at about 60% of a normal year. The field of starters is very small. As I look out into the stadium, there's a wave lining up, and instead of maybe 500 to 750 athletes right now for this classic stage, this classic wave, I'm looking at about 15 or 20 skiers. As I mentioned earlier, about 8,300 skiers registered. A little more than 3,000 of those participated virtually. And the remaining between a little less than 5,000 skiers actually are spread out over 5 days. The day of largest participation, as you might expect, was yesterday with the elite men and women in skate race, as well as waves of citizen athletes going off. But the Birkie's just really done a creative and imaginative job of dealing with the CDC requirements for how to exist in this era of the COVID-19 virus. And now you see Frankowski back to the race. She's starting to push a little separation. And I don't know if this is going to be a break that she can sustain, because there's still a long way to go, but it would probably depend on how tired Elaine is. I mean, it starts to be if there's a gap there, but Elena's skis are running good. It looks like she's starting to come right back to Frankowski. Yeah, she's there was a short gap. It might have been that she just, Elena took a break to give herself a feed. Now you see Ian Torchia, he's following the tracks of our snowmobile camera. The advantage these two athletes have, and again now Rosie's, Elena closed that down, but now Rosie's starting to push that distance a little more again, and that sometimes that string will just break, the old rubber band, and it looks like maybe that's starting to happen right now. This is going to be real interesting. Here you see Torchia double pulling as much as possible. My guess is that at this point it's possible that in a race this long that kick wax is starting to be less and less effective and going to require more and more double pulling. If he can get to the fire tower, then it's other than a climb on a timber trail, it's pretty much downhill. It's a rolling terrain, of course, but you're going to descend in elevation. And you see him now going into a tuck. This might be it. Frankowski now has really got a gap on Elena, and just psychologically that can be after such a long ski, particularly racing yesterday and back today. For Sonesson, this just might be more, a mental discouragement than physical. But I'm sure these two athletes, I can't imagine after racing so hard yesterday and then coming back on that very difficult class. The tracks yesterday for skate racing were fast and firm, almost ideal conditions. This is just the opposite. Wet snow at one of the worst temperatures to get skis to work well in, particularly classic skis, and deep snow, as you can see now. She's got ankle-deep snow when she's doing a running herringbone. The snow continues to fall heavily. My guess is because of the fresh, deep snow, this is not that steep a grade. This has got to be exciting for this young Rosie Frankowski. She is moving through the Fire Tower food station, so she's gonna, well, you have to leave the Fire Tower. You can see she's still climbing, seems to still have good kick and glide. Congratulations to her wax tech. The skis seem well prepared, and she's got about a K to climb, and then much like the young man Torchia, who's ahead of her on the course, now you start to have a lot of descending towards the finish. Yeah, I can't even, we've got quite a distance in that camera shot, and you can't even see Elena Sonesson. So this race may have reached a successful point for this young lady, Rosie Frankowski, who I said has such a stellar career of racing, has had many great results, but not ever a champion of the American Birkebeiner. So she's gliding towards that opportunity right now. I think anybody who's known Rosie knows that throughout her career, she's not large in stature, but large in energy. She's just a real fighter, a real determined skier. And now you see her coming upon another one of the men who left in the elite field ahead of the women. And in this deep snow, like I said, it can be a real struggle to stay on top of those skis. I was wondering if Rosie, to have somebody break trail for just a little bit, would sit behind the young man she caught up with, but obviously she's determined to put as much distance as possible between her and the chasing Elena Sonesson. She looks really good on her skis. You know, it doesn't look like, right now anyway, she's struggling that much to sustain a good technique and a good tempo. It's a young lady, not only a college graduate with 2 master's degrees, part-time teaching at Pacific University, and working in the area in Alaska, and had really, coming from the Midwest and skiing at Northern Michigan, has seemingly found a real home in Alaska. And I will say this, that it seems like anybody who has grown up in Alaska or moved to Alaska really loves it. It's an enchanting land. So, and Rosie Frankowski has had an amazing career. If you look at her resume, particularly the Super Tour results over the years have been outstanding. And as I said, she's had a chance to ski in the 2018 Winter Olympics and in the 2019 World Championships held at the beautiful venue of Seefeld, Austria. So she's behind Ian on the course, and she's making these climbs. It's not one continuous climb, but there's continuing steps of climbing as you progress to the Fire Tower. First she'll come through the Fire Tower food station, then she's got about a K&a-half to go to reach the high point of the American Birkebeiner ski trail. And looking at the terrain in this deep snow, she should be coming close to the Or maybe I'm a little premature. I apologize. When you see spectators on the course, if you're puzzled, there are intersecting forest roads. If you've never been to the Birkie Trail, there are some snowmobile trails. There are also actually some ski trails that come from places like the Rome Campground or the Sealy Highlands. Now you can see visibility is not too great out there. As we look again at a view of the finished stadium, they go over a bridge that's just out of sight, and then they come down and they make 2 right turns as they did yesterday, and then they've got another little climb, about a rise of maybe 4 or 5 feet, just a kind of a berm, and then it's less than 100 meters to the finish line. Just keeping up a great tempo. It's got 12 kilometers to go. Almost 75% of the course is completed. Watching Rosie double pull, I'd say if anything that tempo is increasing, and she's just looking great. Yeah, I'm impressed with this result. To be honest, I thought that possibly much like yesterday, this would be at this point in the race still a field of 4. Katie Feldman, who was 4th, Caitlin Gregg, who was 3rd, and of course Elena Sonesson, who won. They were together early in the race, the 4 of them, and were together at this point of the race yesterday when this was a skate technique. To be honest, I thought that probably they would very similarly stay in contact, but Rosie, much like Ian Torchia did earlier in the race, has made this a one-horse race. Just doing an outstanding job of moving away from a really elite field, particularly looking at the results of Elena Sonesson yesterday. I am impressed with how well Rosie's skiing on her second day of competition. And here we're back to the men's leader. As I said, he's past the Fire Tower high point. He's starting, there's no flat part of this trail. The sad thing is, people in this area of Cable Hayward who want to take up the sport of cross-country skiing, and my personal opinion is that having had a chance to ski in a lot of different famous venues of the world, this is the best venue for cross-country skiing in the world. But if you're starting to learn to ski, there's really not a flat set of tracks on which you can start to feel confident on top of your skis. It's the trail systems. I mean, I shouldn't say there's no flat, but there's not 2 or 3 kilometers of flat trail anywhere in this section of northern Wisconsin. And we do have a lot of trail systems. Of course, the 100 kilometers of the American Birkebeiner. We have Forest Service trail systems at places like Rock Lake and Drummond. We have the North End Trail System, which is parts of trails they've developed, parts of trails that they incorporated from old Telmark trails. And they just do a great job of grooming the North End Ski Club. As well as in Sealy, there's a dog-friendly system of trails. There's hospital trails in the community of Hayward. And it's really a great mecca for cross-country skiing, not only on this beautiful Birkie Trail, but so many other venues in close proximity. Here you see Rosie leading a field of elite men, and obviously they had a 5-minute head start on her, so she's closed that gap quickly and keeps moving forward. It's going to be interesting as we approach the finish of this race to see whether somebody like Tyler Cornfield, with no kick wax and just double pulling, was able to stay with Peter Holmes, who was, the one skier that for a while was challenging Torchia. The men's elite field was about 50 skiers, so she's starting to catch a fairly large number of these athletes who went off ahead of her. You can see how deep the snow's got. You saw that male skier on the right of the screen, how much snow he was pushing. Anybody who completes the challenge of skiing the American Birkebeiner on this Sunday really has been faced with a challenge in this wet, constant falling, deeper snow. One of the bell ringers, one of the things that's unfortunate is these athletes, if they have success yesterday or today, normally could come to all the crowds on Main Street in Hayward and the church bells and cowbells. And with no spectators in the stadium, the best you have is listening to the yelling of Ben Pop. Another thing I might mention as we watch our leaders progress towards the finish is a lot that's been done by the American Birkebeiner to make this a more environmentally friendly race. Many years ago, they got rid of styrofoam cups. They're encouraging skiers to bring their own water bottles, particularly this year with the pandemic. There are no feeds from, there's no bananas, no oranges, no goo. And another thing is, for example, for the elite skiers, There's a designated drop zone for any garbage, and if in fact it's detected that if you drop garbage like a goop packet or something outside that, there can be a 15-minute penalty assessed, which would be devastating. In addition to that, the American Birkebeiner over the last couple years has sold over 10,000 Swix gear bags, so that we're eliminating slowly the use of any plastic clothing bags. This year there is no clothing drop. In fact, because you start and finish at the same venue, and you know, so again, it's to prevent congestion in these areas and to keep social distancing. But the use of gear bags has eliminated all these plastic bags. Some other things, in fact, I was talking to a person who's a new resident in the area and saying that he has an electric car and was concerned about where he could charge that. The American Birkebeiner for more than a year now has electric charging stations at both 00, the Nordic Center there, as well as the start-finish area at the Birkie Trailhead. So encouraging the use of electric cars by the ski community. And our leader for the women's race, Rosie Frankowski, continues to distinguish herself as she solos towards the finish. And here's Ian Torchia. And we're moving through this deep snow. You know, it's just a winter wonderland, but not necessarily the best day for cross-country skiing. And, you know, if I was Rosie Frankowski, I'd be thinking to myself, it was almost perfect conditions for skate racing today. What happened here? But it is beautiful. And, you know, for these two leaders, they've got to be feeling good. Both of them have created enough distance that, you know, they, as long as they can sustain this level of energy and output, they pretty well have assured themselves titles of being the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic champion. But as they say, this is not an easy day at the office for these athletes. And while we're following the elite race here in the stadium, citizen waves continue to still go off. As I've mentioned, really 3 races are taking place on the Birkie Trail today. The most prominent being the Slumberland American Birkebeiner, but also the Coeur de Lopet, sponsored by Solomon, and the Prince Haakon by Northern Lakes Co-op.
Because I can't, he's too far away.
As I look down to the start list, some of the great ski programs to help, particularly in the post-collegiate years, athletes continue to pursue their passion for cross-country skiing are represented. You know, 2 of the most significant are represented by our leaders. Here we've got Ian Torchia from Stratton Mountain, and then in the women's field, it was Rosie Frankowski from APU, but also represented in the start field are the great programs in Idaho of the Sun Valley Ski Education Foundation, in Montana, the Bridger Ski Foundation out of Minnesota, the Loppet Nordic Racing, again, another program out of Bozeman, Montana, Crosscut Mountain Sports Center, all have athletes here. We watched Ian getting a little bit of a feed, the self-feed there. Like I said, the food stations do not provide an opportunity for feeds for these athletes. There is running water, and there are containers of a energy drink that you have to fill your own water bottle from. The history of this race, at least in terms of a historical perspective, goes back to 1206 when two warriors, Norwegian warriors, sought to ski away to save the prince, the young Prince Håkon of the Norwegian royal family, and the term birch leggings developed then. If you've skied 20 or more races, you are considered a birch legger. If you've skied more than 30 races, you are an Uberlegger. We didn't see this yesterday, but Ian's feeling comfortable enough that he stopped and took a feed there. I'm sure in this wet, snow falling, as I said, it's no matter what you're wearing, you start to just get pretty wet, and hypothermia, particularly the energy that they're expending, becomes a concern. Rosie's looking great, though. In the Norwegian race, which I'm trying to think of how old that event is, the Birken, I think it celebrated its, in fact, I'm pretty sure it celebrated its 50th anniversary in the 1980s. So it has a deep and rich history. There, you ski from Rena to Lillehammer over a mountain. In fact, you go above the tree line through snowfields. It's kind of a camelback. And you have to carry a pack. And that's symbolic of the warriors who saved Prince Håkon, and to, symbolize the weight of the young prince. Since Tony adopted the name Birkebeiner from that Norwegian event, I must say I am glad he didn't choose to also adopt the tradition of the ski racers having to have a pack on their back. In Norway, though, because of the going over a mountain, conditions in the valley in Rena at the start or at the finish in Lillehammer can be quite different, so you're encouraged to actually take some what you might call survival gear. Windbreakers and dry gloves, hat in your pack, as well as any fluids or nutrition that you might want to have. The Dolomittenlauf was also one of the early races, and probably one that had the most festivities, which I think Tony looked at in the early years. The Norwegian Birkie and the Swedish Vadlopp, they were just a ski race. They weren't really a ski festival. The Dolomittenlauf, held in Linz, Austria, really was a festival, and with all kinds of music and sprints and individuals in costume. And it was that Tony took as the formula for the American Birkebeiner. So from the very start, he had skydivers and he had lit torches coming down the ski hill at night. As I said, the Wisconsin marching band, he brought celebrities to the event. One year it was the brother of then President Jimmy Carter. Billy Carter was here. He just tried to do everything he could to create a real media event as well as a whole festival of skiing. And the American Birkebeiner Foundation, having taken over the race in the 1980s, has really extended and expanded that. So many activities are incorporated where the feature is still the American Birkebeiner, normally on a Saturday. And there you see Rosie Brennan. What? Too many Rosies on my mind. Rosie Frankowski. How could I mistake that after watching her race for 2 days now? And this is Ian Torchia. I'm sorry, I was losing my thought as I was trying to recognize that food station. I think that was Timber Trail. Now, if that's Timber Trail, then Torchia's got to be moving because he's ahead of her on course close to the finish. And as I look at the running time, he shouldn't be too far out from actually starting to come down the hills into the final finish here at the Berkey Stadium. He's being real careful because having led this race for so long and becoming so close to the finish, it would be a real tragedy if he at this point somehow was able to be overtaken by Holmes or Cornfield. And there you see Rosie Frankowski again catching one of the elite men. That's actually Finn O'Connell, who is an outstanding athlete. He skis for the Bridger Ski Foundation. So she's putting the hurt to some of these top men as she approaches the finish. She's looking great. She's moved over to the compacted track of the camera snowmobile. Just before that, as I saw her moving through the tracks, the skis were at ankle, the snow was at ankle depth. The American Birkebeiner had 5 machines out on the trail last night to set the tracks for this race, which sadly with all this late coming heavy snow didn't accomplish a great deal. One thing that's new, speaking of waxing and how to deal with these difficult conditions, is that FIS has banned this year any use of floral waxes. Fluorinated waxes were considered many years ago, a little over 20 years ago, a real technological development which helped particularly skis glide better, but even it was used in the kick wax of the classic skis. And now, because of concerns about the fluorals being released into the atmosphere, those have been banned. And this year, a representative from FIS, Alan Serrano, was here to randomly check skis. The elite skiers had to put their skis in the start area before the race, so Al could take out of randomly selected skis some impressions. The result of that is sent to a laboratory in Germany for analysis, and if it turned out that you had a fluoro base, then you will be disqualified. So it's a big change. At the high school level, it's been a value in the sense that historically fluoro waxes have cost a great deal more than the paraffin waxes. So, but it's a somewhat difficult, I think, rule to enforce, and this is the first time this has occurred at the American Birkebeiner. This is the first season that FIS has mandated that you not use fluoro waxes. As I watch Ian, I think it looks that he's going to be really happy. He's still working, but not quite the level of energy and the snap he has in his polling as he did earlier. Fully understandable, though, given I can't imagine more difficult conditions to classic ski in. You know, as she catches these elite men, I think just psychologically they'd like to mark her, just like, you know, when a cyclist goes by you faster and you want to get in that draft. But nobody seems to be able to sustain contact with Rosie after she goes by, so Frankowski just keeps pushing the pace, keeps moving towards that finish line. Peter Holmes, as I'm looking back through some results, in 2019, he beat the young man Ivan Babakov, who has the distinction of having raced in the Olympics for both first Russia and now, and more recently, Canada, and now lives in Canmore. In fact, after retiring from such a successful career on the World Cup, for a while was the national team coach for Canada. So we've seen Rosie pass a few of the elite men, but, you know, she does, and then she's out there a solitary figure on the trail, so it speaks to a couple of things. One is the size of the elite field. The men that went off ahead of her was not very great, and two, on this course of 45 kilometers, they're really spread out, because you would thought that, if we compare this to former races, if you'd caught the men's field, which was over 200, in the elite start, you'd see a continuum of athletes, where here she's past the skier and she's back into the forest all by herself. She looks good, though. I'm really impressed with that. She just sustains that same high energy level and a good tempo. She's like a number of athletes who took the opportunity, unique this year, to race both the skate and the classic. As I said, Katie Feldman, who was fourth, did that. She's out on course behind her. Elena Sonesson, who won, she was with Rosie for quite a while. Caitlin Gregg, who was third yesterday, she's classic skiing today. In the men's field, there's Torchia, who looks like our apparent winner. He raced yesterday. Johnny Hagenbuch, he raced yesterday. He was our winner. He's back on course today, classic skiing. Tyre Cornfield was third yesterday. He's out on course. Peter Holmes is out on course. Logan Diekman. These are all people who did the skate race in the elite field. Sam Wood, Brian Gregg, Finn O'Connell, who we just saw being passed by Rosie. Matt Liebsch. These are all athletes in the men's field who doubled up on this unique opportunity. And in the women's field, the top 4 finishers came back to race again today. And if you're just joining us, this is Rosie Frankowski out of Alaska Pacific Nordic Ski Program. She's 29 years old. She grew up in Minneapolis, and she then went to northern Michigan and skied for Sten Feldheim, now skiing in the program directed by Eric Flora at APU in Alaska. She was second in the skate race in a very tight contended finish between her and the overall winner yesterday, Elena Sonesson. But today she's not going to be challenged, I don't think. She's only got less than 5 kilometers to go. She's on what used to be the Kordelopet finish trail that turns off at about the 9K mark and then comes back towards Telemark. And this terrain is, for me, one of the favorite venues of skiing because it's kind of gently rolling. There's no big climbs. And from where she came out onto this section of trail at Timber Trail, you know, it's not downhill, but there's definitely more descents than you have climbs or ascents. So you can see that she's working her way very successfully toward the finish. And my guess is that we should be seeing the finish pretty soon of Ian Torchia. Well, if you watched our live coverage yesterday in difficult conditions of heavy, fresh falling snow, this has really been an outstanding job by the group of people who are bringing you the technology of this live streaming. And here we're looking at the finish of our winner. I was going to say he's far enough ahead with only a couple K to go for Rosie Frankowski that Torchia's got to be moving towards the finish, and for certain he is. Here he comes, our 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic champion, skiing for Stratton Mountain, Ian Torchia. And Ian doesn't look like he's got a lot of energy left to celebrate. He did look tired in those last few kilometers. There's no question. But, you know, the advantage that Rosie has is there are elite men ahead of her where Torchia he was breaking trail the whole way. I mean, yeah, there were 4 runners and they'd been groomed, but the reality is that, and here comes Rosie Frankowski from APU, Northern Michigan University graduate. Went to Southwest High School in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I was looking at the report from Skinny Ski, and Bruce Adelsman was quick to point out that the women's podium yesterday were all Minnesota skiers in terms of Sonesson, Frankowski, and Gregg. And so we're going to see I would say in the tradition of Jesse Diggins, Ian left nothing out there on the course. He made every effort to use every reserve of energy he had to bring himself to a successful win in the Slumberland Classic race of the American Birkebeiner.
Kordelopet Wave 3 is our next wave. About 4 minutes to go for Kordelopet Wave 3. And just as with all of the other waves, We're leaving the gate open for about 10 minutes, so you can go out at your leisure. This may help you to remain socially distanced and help stop the spread of coronavirus.
And here she comes, Rosie Frankowski, 4 kilometers to go. And to her benefit, it is pretty much downhill except that last bridge. And she just looks good. She looks great. You know, the tempo going up the hill and that running herringbone is still great. And an outstanding performance by this young lady. I just am impressed to no end, actually, that this is a phenomenal ski by Rosie Frankowski. I am surprised as she approaches the final kilometers, and just having watched the finish of Ian Torchia, that she's not passing more of the men who were chasing Torchia out of that elite men's wave. Boy, you can get a sense of, as she herringbones up this hill, how deep the snow has become on the track of the American Birkebeiner. This is where there's an intersection of some of the old Telemark trails and the Birkie Classic Trail and the Cordelopet Trail. So our running time is about 2:40 now. You see posted there the men's winning time just under 2:40, 2:39.03 for Ian Torchia. Congratulations again to our 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic winner. It's a good reflection of the energy she has, because on these downhills, I think a lot of people would be content just to rest and let the skis glide down the hill, but she kept double pulling. Part of that also might be a reflection of all the resistance being created by this wet, fresh snow. Last year, the classic race was won by the young lady originally out of the Madison area, Nicole Baith. Here comes another finisher, and let's see if this looks like Peter Holmes. No, this was 3:04. Holmes might have already finished unless we missed somebody. That's the winner from yesterday, the 19-year-old Johnny Hagen. Here comes Frankowski. We're going to check on that. I'm not sure if Johnny was second, that means he passed several skiers like Cornfield and Holmes. Let's see who this is. This looks like the team suit of Tyler Cornfield. This was a guy who made the effort to forego kick wax and double pulled the whole course. You know, it's not going to make any difference if you classic ski double pulled. If you get to the finish in these conditions, it just took an amazing amount of effort. There's 3:04. He's already come across the finish line. And that, from the Sun Valley Ski Education Foundation, I think he was second. That was John Hagenbach. And like I said, he was first yesterday. He must have passed Peter Holmes and on course Tyler Cornfield, because they were both ahead of him as we were watching the early development of the race. So somewhere out there, I'm assuming, is still Holmes. And, you know, in terms of the men's field, with this finish coming, you got to remember, Rosie started 5 minutes behind the men. And the winning time by our first skier for the men, Ian Torchia, is 2:39. So she's not that far behind. Second yesterday was Sam Wood. We haven't seen a lot of Sam on course today. And third was the gentleman Tyler Cornfield. Now we look like we've got another finisher, and that's an easy individual to recognize. That's Brian Gregg. Great race by Brian. He's in that team suit of L&R, sponsored by Mod Shoes. He and his wife always, for the benefit of those trying to watch the identity of skiers through snow, have those neon green hats. They've worn those for years now. They've become symbolic of Team Gregg for sure. And here's Rosie out on course. As we come close to the conclusion of, or at least the finish of our leading woman, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the volunteers, particularly on a day like this, standing out in this wet falling snow to make this event possible. In a normal year, it's about 2,500 volunteers. Even though everything is modified, still it's a dramatic number of individuals who have to support this. In fact, talking to some of the guys who are great at volunteering to park cars, they had to park cars for 5 days of racing as opposed to 1 day of racing because of the continuing use of this venue for starts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today on Sunday, the last day of this 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner. Here you see another finisher, and I believe that's Sam Wood of the Sun Valley Ski Education Foundation. He was our second place finisher yesterday. You can definitely tell the effort that this has taken. As you know, we saw Ian just exhausted, fall to the ground. You look at Sam resting on his poles. This was not the look these athletes had yesterday. And I apologize for this. My start list does not identify 960. Over the years, I've had an opportunity to talk a little bit, interview Rosie, and I just want to say she's just a great ambassador for the sport. Like so many people in the ski community, she has such a phenomenal enthusiasm for this sport that she has dedicated so many years of her life to, and so it's a pleasure to see her having this success on the trails of the Classic race today. There you see some more exhausted finishers in the men's elite field coming across. This looks like that was Christian Gostout. He's from the Crosscut program out of Bozeman, Montana. It's the Crosscut Mountain Sports Center there. She's very close to the finish now. It could have been Peter Holmes who just came across, who was early in the race leading the field and is a two-time former winner. Yeah, Rosie has not very far to go. It's downhill to the bridge. Then she makes that U-turn into the stadium. You can see over to her right, that's the finish area. She just has to make a 180 to bring it home, but first she's got to get up this last bridge, which is a pedestrian. There you can see the start stadium off to her left. That's where she left 2 hours and 51 minutes ago. And here you can see, you'll get to see this finish. She's got to make it through this deep snow. She looks real comfortable on her skis, though. And then another 90-degree turn up this little berm. When she crests the top of that, it's A false downhill almost. There she goes right into the stadium. Congratulations to our 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic champion out of APU, Rosie Frankowski.
Congratulations to the 2021.
Visibility had to be really difficult. She's looking back to see if Elena Sonesson, how far she is from finishing. And as we look through this blizzard, I think these are two more men coming into the finish. We saw her out on course. This looks like a Stratton Mountain. Or no, I think this is a Bridger Ski Foundation. This might be Finn O'Connell, who we saw. Yeah, that's bib 314. That is Finn O'Connell.
Warning, and then the gun will fire at some point between 0 and 30 seconds after I give the 30-second warning. This sort of start is set up so that people won't jump the gun. That may not be a problem out here this morning, as I don't think winning the first 50 meters of this race is going to be crucial to your success out here today. Nevertheless, I'll give you a 30-second warning, and then the gun may fire only a couple seconds later, or it could be up to 30 seconds later. We've got less than 2 minutes for the start of Portalobit Wave 4. This is our final Portalobit Wave of the day.
Oh, I apologize. That's Elena Sonesson, the second place finisher in the women's race. I'm falling asleep on you. I'm really sorry about that. That was the young lady who skied for much of the race with Rosie Frankowski, yesterday's champion in the Stratton Mountain suit. I was looking through my male start list for that number. Fell asleep on you, and I apologize for that. Congratulations to Elena Sonesson. First yesterday, second today. These two young ladies just reversed their podium positions from skate to classic.
Portalobit Wave 4, welcome to the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner.
They spent a lot of time between 2 days in tandem on this trail.
Less than a minute to the start of Portalobit Wave 4. And just like with all the other waves, you're welcome to go out at your leisure over the next 10 minutes. We're encouraging people to stay socially distanced wherever they can, and of course masked up in all common areas.
You see moving out of the finish, that's the young man, Finn O'Connell, who skis for the Bridger Ski Foundation, as does Andy Newell, who's still out on course. You're looking at our 2021 champion, Rosie Frankowski. She looks pretty comfortable standing there, considering the effort that she had to put forth to make this 45-kilometer race in classic technique through this deep, wet snow. We're still waiting, and as I said, that's Elena Sonesson in bib 605. Yesterday's champion, the young woman, went to University of Vermont from the Wayzata High School program, and then is now skiing at Stratton Mountain. Just returned from World Cup starts in 2021. Standing there wearing bib 321 is Peter Hines of the Alaska Pacific Nordic Ski Program. I believe that was 321. Watch another finisher double poling through the last meters of the stadium. And that looks like bib number 302, and that would be Chris Papathopoulos. He's been a top finisher in the past in classic technique in this race. As I said, though, this is a very different race this year because of so many of the elite athletes from the skate race decided to challenge themselves for a second day in classic technique. There you see at the right of the screen the Chief Technical Delegate, Scott Wilson, congratulating our champion, Rosie Frankowski. Here comes another finisher, double poling over that little berm into the stadium.
All right, and the champion of the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Men's Classic Race, residing from originally Rochester, Minnesota, representing Stratton Mountain Team 2, Ian Torchia.
This is bib, I believe that's 303, and if that is, that's Evan Wenzel. You see on those bibs the C in front of the number. That stands for the fact that you can easily deduce that that's for the classic race today. Another of the finishers from our men's elite start. We're still awaiting our third place finisher in the women's field. We've got Rosie Frankowski in first, Elena Sonesson in second. And out on course, when they started to separate from the other skiers, it was Caitlin Gregg in third, followed by Katie Feldman. So it'd be interesting to see if that order of succession will continue at the finish, or if there's been a change in position. You know, one reflection as you look at a couple of people in the stadium, like at the TD or media people, they're wearing heavy parkas. Well, the temperature's not that cold, but everybody, I'm sure, if you've been outside in this wet snow, it is so wet, you have to be wet. So as I think about the athletes, like I said, it was, I'm sure, really hard to sustain a core temperature, particularly given how difficult the race was today in this deep, wet, slow snow. So it's, you know, this has been a real challenge. It's been an epic marathon, which I'm sure none of these skiers who are participating today are going to soon forget.
All right, now we're going to do the men's podium for the Solomon Cordal Open as part of the Slumberland American Birkebeiner.
So this looks like, to me, one of those Bridger Ski Foundation team suits. .329, and that is Andy Newell. I was guessing from the head apparel and that might be Andy. Congratulations, Mr. Newell. Great race. You know, one of America's outstanding national team Olympic skiers, and now living in Bozeman with his wife, Erica Flowers, and running a great sports training program there, doing a lot for the sport as an ambassador. more finishers, but I think, again, these are out of the men's elite field. I'm still trying to see if I can catch.
In second place, Grant Rochela. And the champion of the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner, Solomon Cordelopit.
I don't have the identity of that skier, but he's skied a great race because based on his bib, he would have come out of, I believe, the first wave, not the elite wave. And again, we're still awaiting the third place finisher in the women's race of the 2021 Slumberland American Birkebeiner Classic race. And my guess is this would probably be a competition between Caitlin Gregg and Katie Feldman. There's a possibility, if she had a good recovery, that it looked like for a while Vivian Het was in competition with those. This was early in the race, though. But, you know, the conditions, anybody who hits the wall today is not going to recover from it. So the things could change a lot out on course. Yeah, if you look at those winning times on our screen, Ian Torchia, who dominated the race, skied away from everybody, was 2:39, and only 4 minutes slower was the women's winning time of the young lady Rosie Frankowski. So just an outstanding race by Frankowski. It'll be interesting to look at the final results and see where, compared to the men, she has to have a top finish because we haven't had that many men come in. So Rosie she did an outstanding job. And to be honest, from my perspective watching the race, she looked as fresh as anybody at the finish line. Well, as we wind down this live stream in real time this morning, this has been exciting to be able to bring you from the forests of this ski trail the race for both the men and the women. And I particularly have enjoyed watching this. My name's Dennis Kruse. It's been a lot of fun to share this with you. And again, we're not quite done. We're excited to continue to watch these finishers here in this new stadium. This was just constructed, as I've mentioned, in the past summer here. This was a year ago. This was a narrow trail with quite a stand of trees, a little different contour actually of the venue in terms of the ground. And so a lot of work was done clearing the forest and then recontouring the ground. And this is part of the artificial snowmaking, which is expanded to almost 3 kilometers. And this looks like our third place finisher, and yes, it is. It's Katie Feldman. She was fourth yesterday. She wears bib number 608. And Katie skis for the Sun Valley Education Foundation. Obviously, she was a little behind Caitlin Gregg, but she caught her and passed her to round out our podium position. Congratulations. I'm sure she was a little disappointed to be fourth there. You see her getting happy with just missing the podium yesterday in the skate race. However, in the skate race, we did pay 6 deep, so she was in the money. But let's see. In fact, I think yesterday fourth was $1,000. By not finishing third, she lost about $500. Third place was $1,500. But today she is on the podium, and a great race by the young lady out of Sun Valley Education, and that's Katie Feldman. She's had a pretty successful history here. She was actually in 2019 third in the skate race. And in 2020, as I look down that list, she was sixth. So she's in, but this is, to my knowledge, the first time she's done the Berkeley Classic race. As I said, that's true of a lot of these athletes in the elite field because there's much more prize money in the skate race. And it was the sort of premier event of the American Birkebeiner. But this year there was a unique opportunity to participate in both. So over the course of 2 days, these athletes, this small select field of elite athletes, have raced about 90 kilometers.
Our next group, and that is the Prince Haakon Under 19 boys category. About a minute and 5 seconds to go. We don't yet see.
So once again, my name is Dennis Kruse, and it's been a pleasure to share with you these races, particularly today in this fresh, deep snow on the classic race of the 2021 American Birkebeiner, sponsored by Slumberland. We hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.
The banner at the start, but we do have less than a minute before the start of the Under 19 boys category. Okay, there will be.
There is a place in northern Minnesota where summer is calling you to open up, to jump in, to give your spirit 2 million acres to explore. Savor freshwater days and campfire nights, new trails and new adventures. Breathe deeper. Dare bigger. Let the loons remind you what's really important. Discover a landscape of pure colors and ancient mountains, hidden canyons and endless forests, where Lake Superior whispers and laughs. A place so vast that you'll need a lifetime to discover its secrets, and yet, somehow, it's like coming home. Follow the road, roam the wilds, wander the shore. This is where you feel free. Journey north to Cook County, Minnesota. Plan your adventure at visitcookcounty.com.
Welcome to the back shop at Pioneer Midwest. We are your one-stop shop for all things service. This last year we invested in a Tazari stone grinder machine, so we are doing grinds at the world-class level, and we've also got hot box and all the wax needs that you could possibly think of. So if you're looking for a fresh tune or wax service, definitely let us know and we can help you out. Hi everyone, welcome to the test lab at Pioneer Midwest. This is where we look at the fit and quality of skis. So we do pressure mapping in here, and then we do the flex testing over here. And I want to let you know that every summer we go ski shopping, so we visit the manufacturers to look for the best skis that they've made, and then we pair those up to our customers. So if you want hand-picked skis that are perfect for you, please contact us, and we'd love to get you on our list.